So the new Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, is the manifestation of exactly what MAGA Republicans want. A country where an average white Christian man without experience gets to be in charge just because that's how it's supposed to be. Johnson's unanimous election to Republican leadership after 3 weeks of complete ineptitude was not based on his skill or his talent or his worth. He didn't earn that spot. He doesn't belong there. In fact, Mike Johnson got into government by running unopposed in a majority of his elections and in gerrymandered districts in the rest. But from his new high position of power, a position given to him by people in the government who don't believe in government, he will now try to pass laws that make us behave how he thinks we should behave, to do what he thinks is appropriate, and to function under the yoke of what he believes to be true. This man might look all oakley-dokley pulled together normal, but he is someone who has co-sponsored at least 3 bills for a national abortion ban, who fundamentally does not believe women have the right to their own bodies. A man who argued in a congressional hearing for forced birth and said out loud that if women would just give us more able-bodied workers, Republicans wouldn't be forced to cut Social Security and Medicare. This is a man who claims babies are aborted halfway out of the birth canal and voted against Americans having access to purchase legal contraception. This is the person who is now second in line to be president of the United States. Mike Johnson is also a terrible bigot. The author of a national Don't Say Gay bill that would censor the mention of anything that has to do with LGBTQ people in all public schools, in hospitals, in federal agencies, including the CDC, FDA, and the military. A man who openly wants to overturn gay marriage and was so outraged when the Supreme Court ruled that gay sex wasn't a crime that he wrote an op-ed in the paper insisting there was no right to sodomy in the Constitution, so states should have the ability to criminalize homosexuality as well as ban sex entirely outside of marriage if they so desired. And I'm going to repeat that because it bears repeating. The Republican Speaker of the House argued that we should criminalize homosexuality and make it illegal to have sex outside of the confines of Christian marriage. Does that sound like the kind of country you want to be living in? The now leader of the Republican majority party also claimed that the 2020 election was rigged, but ironically occupies his very seat in Congress because of that election. Speaker Johnson was a leading voice against certifying the electoral count in multiple states, still calls January 6th a legitimate protest, and actively opposed the January 6th committee. At a time where Trump's co-conspirators, including his chief of staff, are all admitting they lied about the election being stolen, House Republicans made an unrepentant election denier their leader. So it's probably not a surprise that the man who's against democracy in his own country would also be against it in others. He supports Putin's war crimes by actively opposing continued aid to Ukraine, making sure democracy can't stand up to an authoritarian takeover. Mike Johnson is also a far-right Christian evangelical who prays on the House floor and believes his speakership was ordained by God. In fact, he told us his wife couldn't join him in his moment of glory because she had spent the last couple of weeks on her knees in prayer to the Lord and was worn out. Well, I'm worn out. If this vote teaches us anything, it's that there are no moderate Republicans left. They are all the same. MAGA extremists who voted unanimously to be led by an election-denying, abortion-banning Christian bigot who thinks he knows better than every single one of us how we should live our lives, and if given the chance, they will make sure we all bend to their will. This is no longer a choice between liberals or conservatives or Democrats or Republicans. This is a choice between democracy and authoritarianism. It's about freedom or control. There's no middle ground here. You can't straddle the fence or sit this one out. We're going to get one or we're going to get the other. The Republicans have told us who they are by continuing to support Donald Trump and now putting this man in charge of the House. The question is, do you want to live in their lawless, unjust, backwards, bigoted world, or will you join the majority of us and fight back for something better? The time for wavering is over. You have to pick a side.